Hello and welcome to this Astranti pre-scene analysis video for the November 2020 and February 2021 operational case study exams, where we are going to be focusing on our pre-scene company AmaZZZing Beds. Before we go any further, I'd just like to introduce myself in a little bit more detail. So my name is James and I'm part of the content creation team here at Astranti. Now, as part of my role, I work quite extensively on the production of our case study materials. So for the last few sittings, I have been the OCS pre-scene tutor, producing the range of different video analysis series that we produce on the OCS content. Before that, I've also been involved in the production of our industry analysis documents and videos, and I am also quite heavily involved in the production and proofing of the mock exams that we produce, both at OCS level, but also at the higher levels of the CIMA qualification, so for MCS and SCS. Away from the case study, I am also one of our CIMA tutors, so I produce and proof a range of content on a number of different syllabuses, principally focused on financial accounting, so I principally work on F2 with a little bit of F1 and BA3 thrown into things. Okay, so now that I've introduced myself, let's introduce the way that this video series is going to work in a little bit more detail, okay? So this series is going to see us break down the pre-scene document provided by CIMA section by section, okay? So we will most likely deal with a couple of pages of the document in each individual video. And we'll of course look to break this down and analyse these individual sections in more depth respectively, okay? So in terms of some of the things that we will look for as part of our analysis, of course we are going to be looking for key points within the pre-scene analysis. Now, this might sound like a very straightforward thing to say, but to clarify in a little bit of detail what we will be looking for here, firstly, are key points in relation to the pre-scene company in and of itself, how it operates, how it looks to develop going forward, key parts of its operations, for example. But we will also be looking to highlight key points that are particularly relevant to you and your exam, okay? As part of this, we will then also be looking to provide guidance about this company in the context of its wider industry. Okay, so we do have a separate industry analysis video which does this a little bit in and of itself. But given that it's important that you demonstrate your wider industry knowledge about the industry in which the pre-scene company sits, we will look to consider the pre-scene material that we have been provided by CIMA in the context of the wider industry in which it operates. Okay. I'll also be looking to reference any relevant business models as part of my analysis, so I may touch on models like pestle analysis, like SWOT analysis, sort of generic models that can be used to analyse a company and its position. And I may then also touch on more specific models to the relevant pre-scene company. So something like Porter's value chain, for example, may well be something that we touch upon and use and analyse in relation to this company, okay? As I touched on earlier, one of the key focuses of this analysis is to bring out likely exam issues from the pre-scene document, okay? So the whole point of this analysis, yes, is to improve your knowledge about this company and the ins and outs of its operations, but crucially also, we want to relate these points back to potential topics, potential areas that you could be examined upon when it gets to exam day itself, okay? So I'll be trying to link the various points of analysis that I talk about back to potential exam issues as much as possible. And linked into this a little bit, I'll try and supplement this with any hints or tips about the exams that we are sort of aware of based on the past way that CIMA have tested topics, okay? Once we've done our pre-scene analysis series, we will move on to what would be video 7 in our series on this pre-scene company, which will be our strategic analysis video. Now, in this video, we use a model known as the rational planning model. Don't worry if you've not come across it yet as part of your studies. It's generally something that's introduced at the higher level of the CIMA qualification. However, it is something that is useful for us to use as part of our strategic analysis in terms of helping us develop a really strong knowledge about where a company is looking to go and how the company is looking to get there. And this then means that when you get into the exam itself, you have this sort of underlying knowledge about a business's strategic goals and direction that you can use to help shape your response to particular issues you face in the exam itself. And finally, we'll then round off our video series on this pre-seen company with a top 10 issues video. Now, this video is fairly self-explanatory, but it just involves me going through and picking out the 10 most important issues that I think could be relevant to this pre-seen company. There is obviously a huge amount of content for you to look through at this level of the qualification, and so the theory revision side of things can be quite daunting for these exams. So hopefully this top 10 issues video will help you narrow your focus on particularly key bits of theory that you should revise for this company, okay? Specifically in terms of how this analysis will work in a little bit more detail. As I've said, we'll be going through this document and breaking it down section by section. And as part of this, I'm going to be assuming that you have no prior knowledge of the pre-seen as I progress, okay? So we'll be building up our knowledge of this pre-seen from zero, starting from page 1 and working through to the end of the document, okay? So it may be that you've read through the document beforehand and are already sort of in tune with some of the key issues about this company. So it may just be a case of you having to be a little bit patient in the early videos as we work from a base of 0 essentially in this video and build up our knowledge of this company collectively over the course of our analysis. We would very much recommend that you are quite interactive with these videos. These aren't something that you should just sort of sit there passively and just listen to. What we would maybe recommend is that you read the section of the pre-seen before you watch the video on it and make some notes about ideas and items that you think are relevant. And then listen to my review of the section, and that way you're sort of getting twofold analysis. So you're getting your initial thoughts on the section and then you're getting my thoughts on the section after that. And it may well be that our points differ in some areas. It may well be that you think of things that I don't come up with and vice versa. That's all well and good. That's all part of the learning process, okay? And then once we've done this section by section analysis, as I've already mentioned, we'll go through a full strategic analysis of the company when we sort of developed our knowledge of it in a little bit more detail and pick out some of the key issues for you to focus on in your revision. Okay, so to finish off, a few key points to make about the pre-seen in and of itself. Firstly, it's really important to remember what role the pre-seen fulfills for CIMA, okay? So they release this to give you context on the pre-seen company that they're going to examine, okay? So this pre-seen document is written by CIMA with the overriding aim of testing its content in the actual exams itself, okay? So this therefore gives us a slight idea of maybe some of the topics that are likely to come up. If CIMA includes a particular item within the pre-seen, then it is very likely that they have done this with the aim of actually testing it when it comes to the exam itself, okay? So the idea of signposting is something I'll probably mention a little bit over the course of my analysis. Essentially, we are picking up on particular items that CIMA have likely included with the overriding aim of testing you on these items in the exam, okay? So we can build up quite a nice picture of potential exam topics from an analysis of this document. However, what we must avoid is pre-writing anything based on the pre-seen alone. So, when you get into the exam itself, you'll be provided with a range of unseen scenarios that you have to respond specifically to. If you go into the exam with pre-written answers based on the pre-seen, then it's likely that your answers will be too general. They will be focused on the company as a whole, and they won't be focused enough on the specific requirements, the specific unseen scenarios that you are facing in the exam itself, okay? So we would very much recommend that you do not pre-write any content based purely on the pre-seen analysis. Instead, you should use this content as background, essentially to help you deal with unseen issues. Okay, so if you build up this nice background knowledge about the pre-seen company, then you are going to be in a really good place to respond to any specific scenarios that you come up against in the exam. Okay, so with this in mind, yes, do use your pre-seen knowledge on the day of the exam. Yes, you can make recommendations that are consistent with your analysis of this document. But please ensure that you deal with unseen issues organically and specifically, okay? And you only use your pre-seen knowledge as sort of support for this, and you don't basically pre-write responses and use these as the answers in the exam, okay? As you will score poorly if you follow this approach. So in this video series, we are going to break down the pre-seen document into 6 different sections, and we're going to look through each of these sections one by one in individual videos to break them down in a little bit more detail. And as you can see on screen in video 1, we're going to take a little bit of an introductory approach here, and we're going to start, if I just scroll down, by looking at sections 1 and 2 of the pre-seen. Okay, so we're going to introduce your role within this business, and then we're going to take a little bit of a look into an introduction about this business in a little bit more detail. Okay, so pages 3 and 2 of our pre-seen. Okay, so with that introductory bit of blurb out the way, let's scroll down to page 2 of the pre-seen, and let's take a look at the role that you fulfill within this business within your exam in a little bit more detail. So this might look like a fairly short, a fairly inconsequential part of the pre-seen document, but it is actually of vital importance for you to read and to understand what it is talking about, especially as we're dealing with the operational case study exam here, which is the first time that you'll come up against this case study format exam as part of your studies in the CIMA qualification. Why is this section so important? Well, essentially because it points you in the right direction of the requirements that you are going to be required to deal with in your actual exam itself. It's important to remember that the case study exams are completely different in format to your OT exams, where you're purely being tested on your theory knowledge. In these case study exams, yes, your theory knowledge is absolutely crucial, but what is equally important, if not a little bit more important, is actually your ability to apply this theory knowledge to real life business scenarios. CIMA require you to take on the role of a real-life employee within their fictional pre-seen company. So AmaZZZing Beds for the November and February sittings. And then when it comes to the actual exam itself, they can present you with a range of real-life scenarios, i.e. real-life scenarios that you would come up against were you a real employee within this business. And you therefore have to utilize the theory knowledge that you have as a base from your OT exams and apply this to the relevant scenario that you come up against in your exam. With this context in mind, therefore, this section of the pre-seen is vital because it sets out the responsibilities that you will need to undertake as a staff member within AmaZZZing Beds as our fictional pre-seen company, and it therefore sets out and signposts the different requirements under which you are going to be tested in the exam. Okay, so our first sentence here states that you are a finance officer working within the finance department of AmaZZZing Beds. So the first question that we can ask here is, what actually is a finance officer and what position do they hold within an organisation? Well, as you can see from this mock organisational structure that I've just brought up, as a finance officer, you are operating at the lowest level of an organisation's hierarchy, okay? So you may well be one of a number of finance officers working within this company's finance department, and then you will report to the company's finance manager, so slightly further up the organisational hierarchy, who will in turn report to the entity's finance director, who will in turn be subjugated to the managing director or the CEO at the top of this business. Okay, so it's vital to keep this position within this organisation in mind when you are dealing with exam requirements. Okay, so what does this mean in terms of the type of tasks you'll be facing in the actual exam itself? Well, essentially it means that you are operating at the operational level of this business. You will be producing operational level information. Okay, so your role will have a short-term focus in terms of the information that you are working with and the analysis that you are conducting. So you may, for example, be producing management or financial accounting information, doing a bit of analysis on this, and then passing this information to someone further up the organisation's hierarchy who will make more longer-term decisions based on the short-term analysis that you have done. Okay, so when answering questions in the exam, it's really important to keep this in mind. It is not within your remit, it's not within your job description to provide suggestions about a business's long-term strategy development, for example. What you are doing is you are providing essentially the building blocks for these long-term decisions with the short-term analysis and information that you are producing. Okay, so with all this in mind, we can sort of sum up your overriding job role as a finance officer for this business as compile information and provide analysis for strategic decision making. Okay, so in the context of your exam, the compile information part of things relates to you demonstrating your theory knowledge of the operational topics. Okay, so here we are talking about your management accounting knowledge from P1, we're talking about your financial accounting knowledge from F1, and also, of course, the wider business knowledge that you have generated from E1, okay? So being able to compile useful information using all of this theory knowledge. And then crucially, we are talking about the need to provide analysis for those higher up a business's food chain, essentially. And to do this, what you have to do is apply this existing theory knowledge that you have built up to the relevant scenarios that you are presented with in the unseen in your exam to provide useful information that can be used by more senior staff members. So this is probably an idea that you will have reinforced to you over and over again at operational level, but it's crucial to remember that this is not just a textbook based exercise. You're not just simply regurgitating knowledge that you have about particular topics. As if you were a real life finance officer within a real life business, this would be no use to anyone. What is absolutely crucial for you to do as your role as a finance officer is to be able to apply this information to the scenarios that you are dealing with, okay? So a mixture of theory knowledge, but crucially application of this theory knowledge is the underpinning of any success that you are going to have at this level. Okay, so now that we've examined what a finance officer is in a little bit more detail, let's crack on with the remainder of this paragraph, okay? So firstly, we are told that you are principally involved in the preparation of management accounting information and providing information to managers to assist with decision making, okay? So very much some of the points that we've been touching on in our little introduction so far. But what does this specifically relate to in terms of your OT subjects? Well, the best way for us to consider this matter is to think about these 6 key learning outcomes or core activities that CIMA have released as part of their operational blueprint for these exams. And these key learning outcomes essentially give us a bit of a blueprint about the topics that will be tested at case study exam. And they also come with levels of weighting attached to them. So they also give us a hint about the prevalence of certain topics within the exam. Now, as we can see from the sentence of the role profile that we've just read out, a key part of your role will centre around the P-based topics within the operational level, okay? So core activity A relates to costing information and preparing costing information, and we can see that this relates to between 12 and 18% of your exam. Core activity B relates to budgeting, and this relates to a massive 17 to 25% of your exam. Okay, so we can see how these are directly linked to this idea of preparing management information, and this reinforces the importance of topics like costing and budgeting within this particular exam. These are fundamental P1 topics. They are fundamentally hinted at in terms of this role profile and the type of things that you'll commonly be involved in as a finance officer, and they are therefore crucial areas of theory that you need to make sure you are completely happy with, completely comfortable with when it comes to this particular exam, as they are highly likely to be tested in a reasonable level of depth. Okay, and then core activities C and E then relate to the second half of this sentence that we've just introduced here, the provision of information to managers to assist with decision making. Okay, so core activity C relates to the measurement of financial and non-financial performance. So here we're talking about things like variance analysis and also things like KPIs, leaning on E1 a little bit there. Whereas core activity E centres around a lot of the decision-making topics that are very prevalent in P1. Okay, so we have 2 more key learning activities that could account for up to a quarter of your exam that are again dominated by P1 based topics. So what we can clearly say based on our knowledge of the key learning outcomes and of this role that is set up by CIMA is that the P1 exam is going to form the backbone of this operational case study exam. Okay, so I would very much recommend, and this is something I would probably say again and again over the course of our pre-scene analysis, if P1 is an area where you struggle slightly theory-wise, if you're not completely comfortable with the theory within this syllabus, then this is an area that you should focus on as part of your theory revision, as all aspects of this syllabus will be tested in depth in the operational case study exam. And quite simply, if you're not familiar with this subject, if you're not familiar with this syllabus, then you're going to struggle at this exam. Okay, so we've touched on the importance of P1. We've shown how E1 can come into things a little bit. And then in the final sentence of this role profile, we touch on our third syllabus area, which is, of course, F1. Okay, so we're told that at times you are also expected to assist with the preparation of the financial statements and answer queries regarding financial reporting and other financial matters. So this last sentence covers the remaining two of our core activities. So core activity D, which can account for up to 18% of your exam, centers around F1, and this is where your financial reporting knowledge will be tested, as well as your knowledge of other key topics from F1 like governance, tax, and also ethics, which is always an important topic at case study level. And this sentence also covers the last of our key learning outcomes, okay? So, key learning outcome F, which can account for up to 13% of your exam, centers around working capital, okay? So, another prominent part of the F1 syllabus. Okay, so again here we have a level of signposting about the topics that are likely to come up in your exam. Something like working capital, for instance, is a relatively small area of the operational syllabus, but has a designated core activity associated with it. So clearly should be an area that you look to brush up on your knowledge in relation to this exam, as it is very likely to be tested, okay? And what I would say about these key learning outcomes is that from what we've seen about CIMA's testing of the 2019 syllabus so far, they seem to be testing these key learning outcomes quite closely, okay? So I know that it can be a bit daunting at operational level in terms of the amount of theory you have to brush up on and revise upon. Well, these key learning outcomes should give you a really good starting point, okay? Focusing on the key topics that are referenced by these key learning outcomes and the I can statements which accompany them in CIMA's blueprints. Well, I've got your attention at the end of this video. I would just like you to make you aware of some of the other products that Astranti sells for our case study courses. So the first of these are a series of study text and tuition videos, okay? And we have two aspects to the series. So firstly, we have an exam technique study series for you, okay? And this is a range of study text chapters and accompanying videos for those of you who are more visual learners, breaking down the key aspects of success at the various case study levels, okay? So here we're looking at exam technique, we're looking at things like writing style, we're looking at things like planning, all these key aspects that you need to have really nailed down to be successful in these exams. You'll find how to sort of brush up on these areas in this exam technique series. And then to accompany this, we have a revision series dedicated to the theory side of things. So obviously there is a huge amount of theory to sort of brush up on when it comes to the case study exam. So what we've done in these series is we've taken the key areas of theory for each of the 3 case study levels. We've condensed these into a sort of series of study text chapters, and again accompanying videos for those of you who are more visual learners to provide you with a more focused sort of theory revision when it comes to the case study, okay? Moving away from the more generic products to the more specific products we create each sitting for the designated pre-scenes that CIMA release. First and foremost, we have our pre-scene analysis video series, okay? So first and foremost, this consists of 6 videos where we break down the relevant pre-scene at the relevant level of the qualification, page by page in significant levels of detail, okay? Bringing out all the key points that are going to be relevant for your exam. And we then supplement this with 2 additional videos. So we have a strategic analysis video and a top 10 issues video, also focused on the designated pre-scene for each level for the specific sitting in question. We then provide an industry analysis document and accompanying video. Okay, so CIMA like to see you demonstrate wider industry knowledge when it comes to the exam. And what this industry analysis therefore does, it help you cater to this particular request on CIMA's behalf. Okay, so essentially what we've done is we've compiled all the key bits of information about the relevant industry into one big document to save you having to do this as part of your revision. And we produced a video accompanying this, picking out some of the particularly key points. We also produced a number of mock exams for every sitting. So we write 5 mock exams for each level in the first sitting of the 6-month exam window, and then we add 2 more supplementary mocks on top of this for anyone resitting when it comes to the second sitting within the new 6 months exam window. Okay, and we design these mocks to be very specific around key issues relevant to the pre-scene. We try to make them as lifelike as possible in terms of CIMA's real life exams. Okay, so these are a great way to practice your exam technique and your knowledge about the pre-scene company under sort of timed conditions. And then to add further value to this product, we also offer marking and feedback, a marking and feedback service. So we have a range of great, highly skilled finance professionals working as freelance staff for us. And it's these staff who conduct the marking and feedback service that we provide to you. Okay, so this is a really great service to use in conjunction with our mock exams to really give you a great idea of how you are progressing in the areas that you need to work on before the actual exam itself. If you're still in need of extra exam practice and you've run out of mock exams that we supply, we also provide a more generic question pack product. Okay, so obviously there is only a specific amount of questions that you can write about a specific pre-scene, and so what these question packs are is a series of generic questions on generic scenarios that we've come up with here at Astranti, whereby we look to test specific topics that come up regularly at case study exam. Okay, so if there is a particular topic that you're struggling with and we've maybe tested it once in our mocks but you'd like some more practice on it, then these question packs would be a really great product for you to turn to, as we have all the key topics that are likely to be tested covered within these. Okay, the penultimate product on this list is a product for those of you out there who would like to sort of get a full overriding picture in terms of your revision all at once. And these are our masterclasses. Okay, so we have expert tutors who hold 2 masterclass sessions for every exam sitting. And these essentially cover all key aspects that you're going to need to know for your relevant exam. Okay, so from particular pieces of theory, from an analysis of the pre-scene, all the way through to tips and ideas about exam technique. And finally, such is the confidence that we have in the quality of our products and the quality of our course, that if you do purchase a full course from us and you unfortunately do not pass your exam using our products, then we will offer what is known as a pass guarantee. Okay, so if you're a full course student who fails using our materials, we will provide you with our materials free of charge for the next sitting in the hope that you pass second time around. Okay, so thank you very much for listening to that. I hope you find our products useful, and of course I'd like to wish you best of luck from everyone here at Astranti for your exams.